Hey everybody, welcome to Hearing God in 2 Peter chapter 2, where I've got some convicting words for myself today, which might also bring some conviction to you. And please know that I do so humbly and out of love, speaking first to myself before I speak to you. But with that in mind, remember that 2 Peter is a circular letter that's being written to a series of churches in Asia Minor who are undergoing suffering and persecution. And specifically, the situation in those churches right now is that they're being infiltrated by false teachers. And so Peter is writing to them saying, be on your guard and you must deal radically with false teaching. And so in 2 Peter chapter 2, he's giving them some examples of the false teaching and how God will deal with that. But in verse 19, there was a verse that caught my attention. It says, so of the false teachers, they promise freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption. For whatever overcomes a person, to that he is enslaved. And boy, that last phrase, for whatever overcomes a person, to that he is enslaved. And as I look at my own life, I look at the church pastorally, and I consider the greater landscape of Christian culture. Boy, there's a lot of enslavement that is still present in the lives of professing believers. And we've even made some of that enslavement socially acceptable. We've said that these sins are acceptable, other sins are unacceptable. We can even, have you ever noticed how we judge the sins of others more harshly than we judge our own? Or that we do categorize and say, well, that sin is terrible, but this issue in my life not as big a deal. And so one distinction or one example I might give is, we look at addiction to things like alcohol or drugs or gambling, and we say, oh, those are unacceptable. But when we look at our own lives and we consider addiction, and which is what it is, to media or to food, um, somehow that's okay. Somehow we've made that to be acceptable and not as bad, when in reality we see the harsh consequences of let's use food as an example because that's where it gets personal for me. We see the terrible outcomes of such addiction to food, which is gluttony, which is idolatry, which at its root level really is sin. And so, aside from the physical consequences of our addiction to food and certain kinds of food, whether that be sugar or whatever it is that we know is not glorifying to God, is not good for the temples that He has entrusted to us, um, aside from the physical ramifications for that, spiritually, we are committing spiritual adultery through idolatry. We're making something greater than God. We're unwilling to obey in a certain area of our lives, and we've even rationalized it by making it socially acceptable. And so, where this becomes relevant for me this week and very convicting, I had a physical, and no surprise, I'm overweight. Um, Now, again, you might look at me and say, just a few pounds. And so, by society standards, and I'm not so bad in this regard. But you know what? Honestly, by God's standard and spiritually speaking, I am careless and gluttonous with the temple that God has entrusted to me. I live to eat more than I eat to live, and that is so very backwards. Food is an idol for me, and as I said earlier, idolatry is sin, and sin must be crucified and made not acceptable. How ludicrous that sounds, but it is unacceptable. And so, again, this is not meant to shame anyone else out there who is in the same category that I am in, but it is meant to call out, I believe, the Christian church and to say, hey, this is a bigger deal than we rationalize it to be. We are not honoring God with our temples, and our resulting health problems prevent us from being able to serve God as we ought to. What a tremendous gift God has given to us with these physical bodies. They are an instrument, they are a tool for serving Him. And when we don't treat them with the respect and the honor that they are due, when we become enslaved and worship food or other things with these temples, um, boy, there are some big consequences that result from that. And so, um, my response for myself, and again, I'm not saying that we are called to be bodybuilders, that we are called to be people who are on the covers of fitness magazines. I'm just saying at base level, we need to hit the reset button and some course correction in making our physical body spiritual. What we do with these temples is spiritual. It's not just a matter of, well, if you drop a few pounds, you'll be healthier. No, this is spiritual, and we must treat it as so. And so, my response in my Here Journal: Father, wake us up to the unacceptability of our gluttony. Heal us in those root areas of our souls which lead to such sin, because I do believe that our bondage in this regard, it has a root, and we may need some counseling, we may need some help, we may need some prayer ministry to help deliver us from whatever those roots are that lead to the behavior. But at any rate, we need to first be honest about the behavior. Help us to live abundant, flourishing lives which are compelling to others. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of angles to this, where if we're healthier physically, we're going to be healthier spiritually because we've removed the idolatry in our lives, but also, we're going to have more energy to be able to serve God. What a great thing that would be. We're going to be able to do more for the kingdom that honors God, and we'll be better stewards of these temples. So I know that's a lot to digest today, but yeah, certainly hit me in a sensitive area of my life where I'm struggling. I could use your prayers in this regard, because again, I live to eat rather than eat to live, and I know I'm not alone. And I just would love for us as the Christian church not to make that so acceptable, to say, well, these other sins over here, those are far more serious. This is idolatry. This is spiritual adultery when we put something else ahead of God. So, anyway, let's work together in that regard. And through the power of the Holy Spirit, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, and that includes overcoming such sins in our lives. So, hope you have a great weekend. We'll look forward to talking with you again soon.